In our world, being different is often viewed negatively. In this episode, I'd like to talk about how being different can be a gift, not only to ourselves, but to the world. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. Pastor Tim Westermeyer here, Senior Pastor of St. Philip the Deacon in the western suburbs of Minneapolis. It's good to be with you, as always. I have, as you may know, been thinking about Julian of Norwich for the last week or so. I talked about her in episode 196, which appeared last week. And then I ended up actually being so sort of taken by her, I actually preached about her this past weekend. So we'll provide links to both that episode and to the sermon up here somewhere. I'm not planning to talk about her in every episode and every sermon for the rest of my life, but upon reflection, it struck me that there was a theme that I wanted to tease out and come back to based on her life, which we've actually talked about here before. In both the episode and in the sermon, I mentioned that Julian was what was called an anchoress. That was a particular type of hermit who lived in a cell, in a room. He or she, an anchorite was the male version, an anchoress was the female version. And they were literally sealed into a room or a cell where they lived for the rest of their lives. Again, they felt, Julian and others who lived that kind of life felt invited by God into that particular kind of way of being faithful to God or living out what they were called to. Whatever else you want to say about that way of life, though, particularly for us in our world today, it is different. It's a little strange. It's peculiar. It's unusual. And that reminded me of this idea that each of us, every one of you, is called to be different from every other Christian who has ever lived or who ever will live. And we talked about that a little bit quite a while ago now in two different episodes, which I'm going to commend to you, where I lift this up in different ways. Those are episodes number 126 and episode number 127. And just to confuse things, by the way, I think in episode 126, I actually refer to it as 125 while I'm talking, but we correct it in the visuals. It doesn't matter. We'll provide links to the appropriate episodes. It's 126, which is called The Challenge of Being Different, and episode 127, which is A Lesson from the Saints, Be Yourself. And so today, I just want to remind us that part of the life of faith, part of the Christian life, is that as we are welcomed into God's kingdom through the church, it doesn't mean being welcomed into a community where we're asked to be like everyone else in the community. In fact, I would say that's what the world outside the church wants us to convince us of, that we're supposed to be like others. Here in the church, we are invited into a different kind of reality. I would call it a bracing kind of reality where we're challenged and invited to be the unique individual that God has made each of us to be. So a few quick quotes, and again, I'm lifting some of these up from those other episodes to remind us of this. One, from Mother Teresa: "You can do something I can't do. I can do something you can't do. Together, let us do something beautiful for God." Again, that's getting at exactly that point. Each of us are invited to be different, to exercise the, again, peculiar gifts and skills and abilities and background that only you or I have, differently, separately. So that's one. Thomas Merton, a 20th century author in America, said, "For me to be a saint means to be myself," right? And that doesn't mean, again, the self that the world tells us to be, but rather the self that God has made you to be. So to be a saint means to be yourself as God made you. And the challenge, of course, is to discern and discover who that self is. Similarly, Richard John Neuhaus, sanctification, becoming holy, is becoming what by the grace of God we already are. Right? Again, exactly that same instinct, that you are called to be the person, individual God made you to be, and the life of faith is to discover who that is. James Martin, I quoted one of his books, My Life with the Saints, says, I hope I'm quoting this correctly, "You help build up the kingdom of God in ways that others cannot," right? as do I. But that makes us different. So to that point, C.S. Lewis, my dear old friend, in the very end of probably his most famous book, the second to last paragraph, this is Mere Christianity, by the way, if I didn't say that. Second to last paragraph of the entire book, he says, "At the beginning I said there were personalities in God. I will go further now. There are no real personalities anywhere else. Until you have given up yourself to Him, you will not have a real self." And then exactly reinforcing this point I'm making, sameness is to be found most among the most, he calls it natural, in quotes, men and women, not among those who surrender to Christ. And then this beautiful sentence, "How monotonously alike all the great tyrants and conquerors have been, how gloriously different are the saints." Unique, different. Now, one final thought. Being different is hard. The world makes us uncomfortable to be different, right? And so I want to remind us that this idea of living into the person God made you to be is not only about yourself. It's also about others, because when we are willing to be different, when we have the courage to be different, other people see that and they sense that, and it maybe gives them the courage also to be different. And here is this last quote I want to lift up from another person I've talked about before, Richard John Neuhaus, Freedom for Ministry. And he says, I sort of paraphrased what he says right there. He says, "When we are afraid to act upon the difference to which we are called, we inhibit others from acting upon the difference to which they are called." So today, my dear friends, can I encourage you, act on the difference to which you are called, not only for your own sake, because you will discover your true self, but also for the sake of the others around you who will see that and will act on the difference to which they have been called, and through it, who knows, maybe together we'll be able to change the world. Thanks as always. Be well, stay in touch, and God bless.